Hey, has Mitch McGovern played his final game for the Carlton Football Club? Has it come and gone? Welcome to a fresh video. In this one, I just want to unpack some fresh reports which really come off the back of some speculation. And maybe this is one of those occasions where you start to see some smoke, then all of a sudden you see a spark, and then all of a sudden there seems to be a little flame. And that pertains to the suggestion that Mitch McGovern was about to trigger a contract extension clause. Now, there were discussions around whether or not it was 1 game to go, 2 games to go. Mitch Cleary reported that it was actually 2. I've seen suggestions elsewhere that it could have been just 1 more to go.
Mitch McGovern can't get a game at Carlton at the tail end of the season. He's got a trigger in his trigger clause to get another year. West Coast or Fremantle should make him an easy target.
Agree. I think West Coast, he's one of those ones that if you can pick up for nothing, absolutely you have him on the list. They need some experience in defence. He's got some of those traits of his brother. A little bit injury prone, but I think at the right price it would be cheap. But I still think there'd be some interest from other clubs, so it won't be that cheap. But the old trigger going against you, clearly he would normally play this game, but because Carlton know that if they give him 1 more, or 2 more, it is in fact, that he will then get an automatic rollover to a big contract next year.
We've seen.
The reality is this. As we head into round 23, Mitch McGovern is fit and available. He played a game in the VFL last week, and he was not selected. Channel 7 ran with the report that Mitch McGovern is set to start looking for a new home in the AFL after being snubbed at the selection table, ensuring he will fall short of a contract trigger. So evidently here, the 30-year-old needed to be recalled for the last 2 games of the Blue season to be assured of his future at the club for 2026. But despite putting up strong numbers in the VFL, he has been overlooked by coach Michael Voss for Saturday's clash with Port Adelaide and could now depart the club as a result. So the reality of Mitch McGovern's season in 2025 looks like this. He played 17 games, which I think, to be fair to Mitch, when he first got to the club, and I'd like to get your view on this because there was a lot of discussion around Mitch when he first got to the club around, the deal, 5-year deal. Silvani subsequently came out and said that they needed to get a name through the door. Mitch McGovern was the name. Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay were young. The idea was to put Mitch McGovern in there as a guy who had come from Adelaide as a forward and was ready to be a little bit more mature, take on some more responsibility. For whatever reason, it didn't work, in my view. I'd like to see what you think about that. But interestingly enough, so in his first year at the club, 2019, he played 16 games. He then played 12 games in 2020. Obviously, that was a COVID-affected year. He played 5 games in 2021. After looking like he had started to get on top of his fitness, then he had that terrible hamstring injury against the Bombers late. 2022, he played 7 games. So if you recall, there was a bit of a move for him to be shifted back. It started looking good and then injury struck. And then from 2023 onwards, I think we started to get a better version of Mitch and a more available version of Mitch. He played 22 games in 2023. He played 18 games last year, and this year he'll play 17. And I guess he's not going to play this week. If he plays next week, it'll take him to 18 games. So all of a sudden, it seems like he started getting on top of his body. But I think the reality is this. Came to the club. There were suggestions that he was unfit, I think by himself. He had the nickname Brackets, which I always thought was just crazy to hear. It was almost like a piss take. Like they were calling him Brackets because he wasn't as in shape or conditioned, and that the 11 was bending because that was his makeup. And I always found that to be a bit of a piss take personally, but it was what it was. And then I think he really started getting on top of his body, and I think that started showing when he started playing, 18 plus games in a season. And so this sort of reminds me a bit of Jack Martin, because with Mitch, I always had higher expectations of him. I thought he was coming to the club to be, I guess, a marquee player. When you give a 5-year deal out, or a long-term deal out like that, and you pay that sort of salary in a salary cap era, I kind of expected him to come and really help improve the team's performance. And I think at times he did. Ultimately, I'm left feeling that I don't know if we got the very, very best of Mitch McGovern for long enough. I don't think he's been a bad player. I just think he's been a relatively unavailable player, but for the last couple of years. So it's been a really interesting one. There's no question around his clubmanship and how good he is with the volunteers and the supporters, and a really good human being. I mean, there's no suggestion around that, and there never is. But just purely from a football performance point of view, I just think I'm left wanting a bit more. And if this is the end of the Mitch McGovern at Carlton experience, I think there's a bit more left on the table here in terms of what he could give to the club. Either that or my expectations were misaligned from the beginning, and this is just kind of what we get. There's also the other story that he's come to the club as a forward. He then moved back into defence, which seemed to look pretty okay for a little bit there. And then 2025, pretty quickly, he was moved out of defence. He became a forward again. He looked okay, and he's been out of the side now due to injury again. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll keep tabs on it. This is now an official report that's come out in the mainstream media, but this is definitely one that was speculated on by the supporters online. It's very rare that such speculation comes from the supporters first and then gets ratified in the mainstream media. Either it's the blind leading the blind, or this is real. But yeah, it's officially out there now in the public. I guess we'll find out if he doesn't play next week, and we'll definitely find out if he's going to be at the club next year. So my question to you is, what would you do with Mitch McGovern? He is 30 years of age. That's the reality. He's played 145 games. He'll be 31 next year. So he's born on the 11th of October. So he's not old. He's got plenty of experience. And when you look at the makeup of the Carlton team at the moment, a lot of youngsters on the list. On the one hand, I think he can be really useful for some of these youngsters coming through. I don't know if that means guaranteed playing time, but I'll put it to you. What would you do in the case of Mitch McGovern? Is there a set, contract length, term that you would put in front of him if you were list manager? And how do you think this will play out? Chat to you soon.